Hello, my name is Janice Patterson. I represent the Westlake North Olmsted chapter of the League of Women Voters of Greater Cleveland. We're pleased to offer voters in North Olmsted this information session about the operating levy for the schools that will be on the May 4 primary ballot in North Olmsted. Questioning the school district's key players is a long-standing league tradition of presenting facts in an even-handed way, but we've had to adapt to today's COVID restrictions that do not allow us to assemble in meeting rooms with a live audience. This program is being recorded without an audience. We've used questions that the league has used for a long time for forums and voter guides. I would also point out that the league participants today do not live in North Olmsted, which is kind of a tradition in the league that we try to put these on in as even a way we can. So we won't be voting in this upcoming election, but we care about it a lot, along with our North Olmsted members and friends. Nikki Salupo, who is our chair, our moderator today, she is the chair of the Fairview Park League of Women Voters. I lived in Westlake a long time ago, and now I live in Avon Lake. And our behind the scenes host media manager, Kathy Woolner, lives in Westlake. Now I will pass the microphone to Nikki Salupo, who will introduce the panelists and present them with questions.
Thank you, Janice. I would like to introduce the superintendent, Dr. Michael Zoller.
Hello.
Next, we have board president, Terry Groden.
Greetings.
And our treasurer, Katie Henes.
Thank you for having me.
Okay, let's start with Dr. Zoller. Would you tell us how long you have been involved with North Olmsted Schools?
Thank you. Yes, my name is Dr. Mike Zoller, and I'm currently the superintendent of the North Olmsted City School District. This is my 8th year in that capacity with North Olmsted City Schools. It's have over 30 years of experience in education, 12 years as superintendent, and 8 years here in North Olmsted. So that's my history with the district.
Thank you. And board president, Terry Groden.
Thank you. I have been on the board. I've been on the board since 2010. My wife and I have lived in North Olmsted for 20 plus years, it'll be 21 years this September. And we have a couple of daughters who, actually I have 2 daughters and a stepdaughter who all graduated from North Olmsted. So, and thank you for having us today.
Thank you. And treasurer, Katie Henes, I'm sorry.
Yes. Thank you so much. I have been with North Olmsted City Schools, couldn't be happier, since August of 2020. And I've been in school finance. This is actually my 20th year. So it's where I began my career, and couldn't think of a better place to be. So
Thank you. Okay, I would like to start now with questions, and I'd like to start with Terry. Can you explain the levy?
Sure, and I'll rely on my colleagues to add anything to what I might say. We are seeking an operating levy in May. It's 8.5 mil. The last time that we passed an operating levy was actually my first year on the board in 2010. So it has been over 10 years since North Olmsted passed its last operating levy. Now, in between then, between 2010 and today, we did pass a bond issue in 2014. And with that, we constructed a new middle school, high school complex, an athletic facility, and a performing arts center. But as far as operating money goes, the last time we passed one, the last time we even put one on the ballot was, again, my first year as a board member in 2010. But, and by the way, having gone 10 plus years now since that was passed, I think I could say we think that has demonstrated some great fiscal stewardship to make that levy last as long as it has. But it is time now. The district does need an infusion of new revenue.
Thank you. Katie, would you like to add anything to that?
I echo Mr. Groden's sentiments that the district has done a fantastic job in their fiscal management of the funds over the 10 years. Most districts are on, you see them on a ballot from every 3 to 5 years. So to manage to be not on the ballot in 10 years is an outstanding feat. So, but the time is now that we do need to be on the ballot for voters to approve additional operating funds. We can't sustain operations in the capacity that we currently have them with the funding that we currently have for a time period any longer than what we have right now.
Thank you. And Michael, anything to add?
Yeah, thank you. I would just concur with what Mr. Groden and Mrs. Henes shared. You know, this is something that the district has been considering for quite a long time. You know, we've been following our financial spending, our situation with our revenue flow, and really have been having conversations about the need to solicit more revenue so that we can maintain our current operation and opportunities for students for really the last several years. In fact, last spring, we were having this same conversation when the COVID pandemic hit. And so that really caused us to reconsider the timing of this particular request. And we postponed it for about a year now. So that has even made the need more critical. And so we fully understand that it's always a difficult request to go and ask the community for additional revenue. But unfortunately, that's a system that we work with in Ohio. And that's how schools are funded. It's a shared responsibility between the local community, the state, and to a somewhat minor degree, the federal government, but it's a partnership. And so we're in a position where we need to ask our community to partner with us so that we can maintain the current level of quality in outstanding school programs and opportunities for kids.
Thank you. Okay, I'm going to begin asking some questions. I will direct the question to one person at a time, but of course, anybody else that wants to add to that person's remarks, of course, will be able to. I'd like to start with Katie. Okay, you're muted right now. Okay. How has the district been able to stave off and operating a levy until 2021?
Through strong fiscal management, they have done through attrition, through minimizing costs, through staff hiring. I'm sorry, I'm totally blanking. Monitoring costs, House bill projects where they did lighting projects where they were able to do cost reductions through House Bill 264 projects, contract management, energy costs,
I think if I could jump in, and this is something that Mike might actually want to talk some more about, but one of the, and everything Katie has said so far is correct as far as some of the costs that we've been able to minimize, but there are also costs that we've put off. And that would be things like new textbook acquisition and new and updated supplies. And I think that's another area where the district has really tried to stretch that last operating levy out, along with those other things that Katie mentioned. And Mike, I don't know if you wanted to say anything about those measures.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we've been doing a lot of budget belt tightening in the last 10 years. So to Katie's point, there has been a history of sound fiscal management regarding our finances. One of the major things that we've been doing in the 8 years that I've been here is really taking a hard look at when one of our employees either retires or resigns or leaves the district in some capacity. We don't just automatically replace that employee. We've installed what I call a soft hiring freeze that has been ongoing throughout the last 8 to 10 years. That's resulted in a pretty significant reduction in our staff, not to the detriment of our programming, but we've just been able to absorb positions where we can and realign our internal operations in accordance with that so that we're more cost effective. So that's been primarily through staff attrition. We've also incorporated a number of operational changes. You know, we did close one of our school buildings, Butternut Primary School, as a result of our new 612 campus. We relocated our administrative headquarters and operations into this facility now, so that we run our transportation department, as well as our custodial and maintenance operation, all of our curriculum support services, administrative offices, all run out of this building now, centrally located. We're currently considering additional school closings. We have an ongoing facilities study that we're working through that has identified that we believe we are in a position where we can close some of our smaller schools and reorganize the remaining school buildings to be able to facilitate our current student enrollment. Our student population has decreased over time, but we flattened out now. So we have about, we're in about a 3,600 student population place that we expect to be for the long term. So we kind of know what we're dealing with now. So we have more space capacity than what we have the need for. So we're looking at potential school closings in the future. Once again, COVID has kind of interrupted this process, but that's certainly something we've been doing. Mr. Groden alluded to some of our decisions that we've been making regarding school supplies and curriculum materials. We have reduced supply budgets, not significantly, but just to tighten our belts. So maybe 10%, we're still able to supply all of the classroom resources that we need to maintain our program. We're looking at Lean Six Sigma recommendations as areas to identify waste in the operation and attend to those. And then I would just let our viewers know that recently our financial department through the treasurer did renegotiate the interest on our bond debt that we have incurred through our 612 capital building project. So with the reevaluation of and refinancing the debt on those bonds, we were able to save the district, several additional $1 million that will be used to defray the cost of our capital improvement projects. So, we're always looking for opportunities where we can reduce our operating costs, but still maintain the high quality educational program that we have. But that's what we've been doing. We've been stretching, we've been tightening our belt, and there comes a time where you can only take that so far before it has a negative impact on the overall operation. And we believe we're at that point now.
Okay, thank you.
Nikki, I'm sorry, if I may just clarify one of the things that Dr. Zoller just brought up, and I'm glad that he mentioned the fact that a while back we were able to refinance some of those bonds related to the building project that will, in the long run, save taxpayers millions of dollars. I think it's important to realize, though, that those savings cannot be put back into the operations of the district. Those are separate and apart. And I don't, Ms. Henes, if you want to just help me clarify that, but while we save that money on the capital building project, fortunately, we can't take those savings and put them into the operational expenses of the district. And I just wanted to make that qualification, I guess.
That's correct. When the bond was passed, revenue from the bond proceeds can only be used to pay off the debt retirement fund. So when those bonds were refinanced, that just reduced that debt and that time period of that debt. So it's kind of like refinancing your house. And it just reduced the time period, I guess, for ease of explanation, that our debt or the interest that we would owe for those bonds that were financed. And same situation, not same situation, but same concept. The PI fund can only be used for the intended purpose that it was passed for. So we can't use the money generated from the PI levy for operational needs. Those can only be used for capital improvement or technology needs. So we can't use that for operational day-to-day needs.
Thank you.
So.
How would this levy add, what would this levy add to a homeowner's tax bill? Mr. Groden.
So for a home value of $100,000, it would be approximately $25 a month. And then let's just say for a home value around 125,000, it goes up to about $30 a month. And then for 150, about $37 per month.
Okay, thank you. When would this levy money come into the district's coffer? Ms. Henes?
We would receive half of the money generated in 2022.
Thank you. Is there any, and I'll address this to Dr. Zoller. Is there anything about the financial situation for North Olmsted schools that is different from that of districts in the surrounding communities?
I don't think there's anything that's significantly different. We all are operating, we're all public schools. We operate under the same school funding model that the state has put in place. So all districts are reliant on local tax dollars to some extent. The state has a formula in terms of how they calculate wealth in a district that they use to determine how much the state share is for each district. So North Olmsted is considered somewhat of a wealthy district when, according to that calculation, because of our commercial property valuations in the area. We have Great Northern Mall. We have a number of commercial properties in our community. But the bulk of the share is generally asked to be supported by the homeowner. The state leaves it up to the local community to determine the level of funding that they believe their local schools need to have a high quality and effective funding program. So all school districts operate under the same system. Most districts are required to go back to the community for operating funds every 2 to 3 years. In North Olmsted, historically, it's been every 3 to 5 years. There's been a request for additional operating funds. And currently, we've stretched that 3 to 5 year duration out to over 10 years now. So we believe we've been excellent stewards of the district's tax dollars. But there's only, as I mentioned before, you can only stretch things so long before operational and quality issues arise. We're already feeling the pressure of increased class sizes in some of our lower elementary school classrooms. And so, we need to replace these teachers as they retire or resign because we don't want our class sizes to be so large that they're no longer effective for high quality teaching and learning. So I would say there's not a lot unique to North Olmsted. We're very similar to most districts, with the exception, I think, that we have been able to stretch and tighten our belts longer than most districts have been able to do.
Thank you. Mr. Groden, what measures will be taken if this levy does not pass?
That's a great question. In fact, we had to supply a plan. The district needed to supply a plan to the Ohio Department of Education to address the fact that in year 3 of our current 5-year forecast, we do start to experience a negative cash balance. So obviously part of that plan, a big part of that plan, was to put a levy, an operating levy on the ballot this May. If that is not successful, then it's very much likely that we'll be back on the ballot in November. And if hopefully we'll have the support of the community, I hope this May, so that we can continue to provide all of the programs and services that our students and our families and our community have become accustomed to. However, if that doesn't happen, then we have to start to examine other cost-saving measures. And when you've been running so lean for so long now, unfortunately, I'm not sure how much there is to trim there without it then starting to impact the things that we can do in and out of the classroom that provides a well-rounded education for our students.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just follow up with that we've intentionally not distributed a detailed cut list of areas that we're looking at, because we're hopeful that the community will rally and support us for this initial levy request. However, as Mr. Groden has alluded, we're not in a position that we're able to continue to operate long-term while we're spending more money than what we're bringing in. We are in a deficit spending situation right now. We've been deficit spending for a couple of years. We're not able to just print money and spend more money than what we take in. We've got to balance our budget. We need to be fiscally responsible. So if we're not able to leverage additional revenue, then we're going to need to cut our expenses, and those cuts will ultimately have a negative impact on our student and on our educational programming and the opportunities that students will have for their education. Schools are a people business. The majority of our budget is related to our personnel in salary and wages in benefits and those types of things. 85% of our budget goes towards our people. So there really isn't a lot left over in terms of operations of places we can go. We need to transport our students. We need to supply the food. We need to feed our students. We need to make sure that our utilities are up to speed, that our buildings are clean, all of those kinds of things. So the only real area we have would impact people. And that has a subsequent impact on the kind of programs, the kind of educational opportunities, the kinds of experiences that we want our students to be able to have. And so that's where the reductions would come if we get to that place in time. We hope we don't need to go there because we want to be able to maintain the high quality program that we have in place. Our community has been very supportive historically, and we are, we're depending upon them to step up. And once they understand the nature of the problem, that they'll see that, yes, this is a real need. We aren't coming back to the community every year, every couple of years. We're only coming back when the need is real and that we really don't have any alternative if we want to be able to maintain the high quality school system that we have.
Thank you. Ms. Henes, what recent changes in in-state, Ohio State legislation has had a negative effect on North Olmsted school finances?
Well, one of the pieces that I wanted to touch on was the piece that Dr. Zoller was talking about. North Olmsted City Schools only receives 23% of its funding from the state. Typically, the state provides about $6,000 per student in foundational funding. North Olmsted receives less than $2,000 per student. Of the 23% funding we receive, we lose 10% of that funding, $864,000 in funding to community and charter schools a year. We are also required to provide the same busing to the students who reside in the community to those schools that would like to be transported to them, as well as scholarship students. We lose about $500,000 to students who take advantage of the scholarships. And we additionally have to provide transportation to those students, as well as anybody who is special education students. We have to provide the testing and any kind of required educational needs. We would have to provide that educational means for that education as well. Support is the word I was looking for, sorry. So those are costs to the district that come out of that foundational funding or out of the taxpayer support that we receive, that students aren't even in our school buildings. They're choosing to be educated somewhere else. So those are some of the state legislative pieces that impact dollars that I don't think a lot of people are aware of, and they have large burdens on school districts.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just, follow up with that, our district loses over $800,000 a year to local charter schools, online, community schools, students that maybe have special needs that need to be enrolled in another school because of their physical disability. All of those funds come directly out of our general fund. So that's, close to $1 million a year is flowing out of the district, of our local taxpayer dollars, and it's going to other types of institutions, which again gets at the nature that we believe, and the Supreme Court of the state of Ohio has agreed 4 times that the way schools are funded in our state is unconstitutional. And yet that nothing has changed in those DeRolf cases that were litigated, 20 to 30 years ago. This is the system we have, but those are some factual realities that people I don't think necessarily understand. We also lose about $130,000 annually to the College Credit Plus program, which is a great program. We want to be able to offer our students the ability to earn both college credit as well as high school credit while they're in school. And we think that's great, but unfortunately, the tuition for those funds is coming directly out of our general fund again. So it's a great thing for parents, a great thing for kids. It's a great program. However, that impacts our general fund revenue significantly as well. And then there have been some other things that have happened historically in the last few years. The state phased out the tangible personal property tax. We were receiving significant amounts of revenue from that. They changed the way utilities are regulated. You know, we lost some revenue because of that. We've lost over $20 million in the last 10 years because of the way school funding has changed just in those areas as well. So it just seems like there's a constant outflow of our general fund revenue going to other entities that if they just were, you know, if we just had that money, we wouldn't need to be asking for, you know, the amount of millage or the frequency of the ask as much as we have been. So, you know, we're trying to keep up with the system, and we're just, you know, unfortunately, we don't have a lot of options where we can increase our revenue and make sure we can balance our budgets.
Thank you.
If I could just add a thought or two about everything that Ms. Henes and Dr. Zoller have already said. The loss of the tangible personal property tax was very harmful, not only to us, but to many local public school districts. When the state legislature decided to phase that out in 2006, they promised school districts that they would be held harmless by something called commercial activity tax. But once state legislators started getting that money, they really didn't release it back to the public school district. So in North Olmsted specifically, since that tangible personal property tax was phased out, we've lost over $20 million in revenue, and that's very difficult to overcome. And I want to make just one other point, and I'll take advantage of this because it might be a good time to bring this up now, because I don't want this to be lost. I think this is important. North Olmsted has been very active on the advocacy front. When bills come before the House or the Senate in Columbus, North Olmsted often, especially when those bills are going to hurt the local taxpayer, North Olmsted has been very active with advocacy efforts in Columbus. We've provided testimony to various House and Senate committees and subcommittees, and with the help of the superintendent and the treasurer, we have provided real information about North Olmsted to show how different pieces of legislation, including past biennium budgets, and I'm sure will be active as the General Assembly considers a new biennium budget this year, to make sure that legislators understand how this impacts local public school districts. A lot of times we don't get everything we want, but there have been times where our advocacy efforts, I think, have helped. And so I think it's important that, I guess the point I'm trying to make is that I hope the local taxpayers understand that while we need their support, we also have their back, maybe when they're not looking. We are doing, and we're fighting every way we can and doing everything we can to protect the local investment in public schools.
Thank you. Dr. Zoller, is the high school graduation rate in North Olmsted a good measure of the system's educational quality? And how has this changed in the last decade?
Absolutely. I think high school graduation rate is one of the few indicators that I agree with on the current state report card accountability system. North Olmsted has historically received an A in that area. We are, 95% plus able to graduate our students in 4 years. They're, due to certain circumstances outside of our control, with families and individual situations, there, generally are a few students that don't graduate in 4 years, but we continue to work with those students in the summer and after their class is graduated to make sure that they're able to obtain their high school diploma. So I believe that's a good indicator, and that North Olmsted has performed extremely well in that area. We have a very diverse district, a very diverse community here in North Olmsted. And we have a number of our students that come into our schools do not speak English as their first language in the home. We have multiple different languages being spoken in our community, up to 30 different languages spoken in our schools. And so we have a lot of English language learning needs that we attend to in the early grade levels. So as you can imagine, students coming in that don't speak English as their first language are going to struggle with state achievement, state assessments. And it takes a while for them to learn the language so that they can perform better on those tests. We believe that when students move in, if they stay with our system, they stay in our schools, by the time they graduate high school, they are ready for whatever their future is going to be, whether it's to enter into a college situation, to enter into the workforce, or enter into the military. Those kids are going to be future ready and be able to have the foundation for their success. So we've got a great high school. We offer a very tremendous program of opportunities for kids in terms of advanced placement courses and honors array of classes, electives, just a great experience we provide for kids that students that take advantage of that do extremely well in the next step once they leave high school.
Thank you. Okay, I'd like to ask the treasurer question now. How has the district managed to have surpluses in recent years? Or have they?
They have not had a surplus. They've been, their expenditures have exceeded their revenues for a number of years now. So they've been operating, they've just had a positive cash balance at the end of the year because of good fiscal management, some of the things that we've discussed previously, but they have been, their expenditures have been exceeding revenues for a number of years now. So depleting their cash balance.
Thank you.
And I would just, add to that, Mr. Groden mentioned that we have delayed purchasing textbooks and some other curricular, purchases that we normally would be making. And this is all a result to help us make sure that we do end the year with a cash surplus. Deficit spending is something that all school districts go through. Anytime you have a levy cycle, you have a big influx of cash in the front end of that cycle. And over time, that's why we do a 5-year forecast every year. We're continually updating and evaluating where our resources are in line with that timeline. But, here we are 10 years out from our last operating levy. So certainly we're in a position where we need to have another influx of revenue so that we can stabilize our budget to come out of this deficit spending cycle and to have the amount of cash on hand that we can maintain our current educational program. We've done a lot of things. As I've mentioned before, we've had a soft hiring freeze. We've looked at all of our facilities. We've closed facilities. We've reevaluated our transportation, bus routing to save money. So we've been extremely fiscally good stewards of our taxes, but at some point you come to a place where you can only stretch so long. And we believe we're at that place right now. And that's why we're asking our community to support us with this operating levy.
Thank you. And I have one more question, and I will begin with Mr. Groden. The district has some very experienced teaching staff, which some people regard as high paid. Given the percentage of dollars that go to instruction, will the salary costs keep going up and up?
Another great question. I may depend on my colleagues for help with this answer, especially our treasurer. But that is a great observation, because we do have a well-tenured or an experienced teaching staff. But first of all, what a great benefit that is to our students, to have teachers who have that level of experience in the classroom. I think that's something that shouldn't be overlooked. I also think that that is a sign of organizational stability. I would be concerned about being in a district where teachers come and go too often. I think any organization strives for stability. Turnover is not good for an organization. And I think that the fact that we have teachers who have been with the district for a while now speaks to the fact that they believe in North Olmsted. They are comfortable in North Olmsted, and they are providing a great education in North Olmsted. And I would just add that Ms. Henes pointed out that she has been in, I think she said that she has been in the school finance world for over 20 years. Now, relatively new to North Olmsted, but one of the observations that she made when she came in was that as we have gone through various negotiations with our staff, they have been very attuned to our fiscal situation here in North Olmsted, and they have they've really acted accordingly to protect, to not only provide the kind of education that our kids deserve, but to protect that investment in the classroom as much as possible. And I think that that's something that should not go unnoticed. But yeah, I think Dr. Zoller mentioned to me one time that you do see these kinds of cycles in public education sometimes. And at some point, we're probably going to be looking at a different scenario in North Olmsted, where the experience, the long-term experience will be on the low end. And I don't know if either Mrs. Henes or Dr. Zoller want to jump in and just add to any of those thoughts.
Thank you.
Go ahead, Katie.
Mr. Groden pointed out a number of items. Yes, the teaching experience of our staff is more on the veteran side, but that is a wonderful thing to have in a school district for our students, and something I hope that I'm here for a number of years and finish my career here. A number of our teachers have started their career and most likely will end their career here. The average experience of our teachers is 17 years right now. But our teachers have taken below average pay increases and are taking higher than average percentages of insurance. They pay higher than percentages of the average insurance premiums every month. So right now we're going to offer some severance plan to try to see a difference in our salary projection. So if the board determines that that's financially feasible, then we might see a difference in that over the 5 years. So.
Well,
Yeah,
thank you.
just would concur with what was just said by both Katie and Mr. Groden. We are a very experienced staff throughout the district. These kind of trends do run in cycles. You know, we would expect that that's going to change here in the next few years. Mrs. Henes has put together a study that we are looking at to see if we can maybe leverage some savings for the district by offering an early retirement incentive. We're in the process of looking at that, and the board will make a determination in the next several months if that seems to make sense for the district, that we can then be able to hire back those teachers and employees that may choose to leave the district. We would be able to hire back new employees and replace them with less experienced staff that would save the district potentially a significant amount of money in the long-term future of the district.
Okay, thank you. Okay, that concludes my section of this forum. I'd like to thank our panel members, Dr. Michael Zoller. I keep mispronouncing your name.
Thank
Zoller.
you.
Board President Terry Groden.
Yes, thank
and
you.
Treasurer Katie Henes. Thank you very much. But before we close, I think the superintendent has a few words he would like to say.
Yes, thank you, Nikki. I'd like to thank those members of the League of Women Voters. I'm going to just share real quickly some information that will be available if people want to have more information about where they can go to get information about this upcoming operating levy. You can receive that information on any of these venues. Certainly, we want to direct people to our district website. There's a lot of financial information on our website. We have our district communication coordinators email address on the screen as well. And there are accounts at both Facebook and Twitter and social media under the support North Olmsted City Schools. You can receive information. I'm just very thankful for the opportunity to be here today and to be able to respond to the questions. I want to thank all of the members of the League of Women Voters. Nikki, thank you for facilitating this conversation. We would not be here if we did not believe that the need was absolutely essential for our community to support this operating levy. We understand people are sensitive about their taxes. We understand 8.5 mils is not insignificant, but we also understand that in order to have a great community, we need to have great schools to support that community. They go hand in hand. And if we want to be able to maintain the great school system we have here in North Olmsted, then we need to have the revenue to maintain the current level of programs, offerings, and opportunities for our students. So please reach out to us. If you have any questions, you can contact any one of us on the screen here, as well as our communications coordinator, or find additional information on our district website. So with that, once again, thank you, Nikki. Thank you to all of the members of the League of Women Voters for convening this forum, and good luck to you in the future.